All right, everybody. Welcome to Truthzilla, episode number 1. Say hello, folks.
Hello, folks.
Hello, folks.
Hello, folks. All right. With us my name's Scott, and with us today we got Ed and Megan.
Hello.
This is a trip, man. Like, this has kind of been a long time in the works. We've been talking about doing this for a minute, and the thing about Truthzilla is you need a lizard the size of Godzilla to defeat the other lizard people, man. And the truth is the only way to bring it, dude. You know, the Truthzilla is here to bring the truth, man. I'm just like, it's kind of crazy, man, that we're here doing this. Like I just we're sitting here with a bunch of microphones and all these thoughts in our head, and it's just like we're just ready to put it out there, dude. And this is just the culmination of a lot of, you know, angst and a lot of conversations amongst ourselves. Like, dude, what the fuck is going on, dude? Like, this makes no sense to me, dude. Like, so this is it. We're just gonna do it. We don't even care. You know, take it or leave it, folks.
Planting seeds of truth.
Planting seeds of truth.
Yep. Let them sprout.
Yep. So take it or leave it.
Wake up, Greg.
Oh, okay. Which is what we almost thought to call the podcast. And so, anyway. Yeah. So, I think it would be appropriate to kind of introduce ourselves a little bit. Ed, what brought you to seeking the truth and wanting to bring the truth, dude?
All right. Well, I'm Ed, and, you know, it's been kind of a long story what brought me to this point. I would say, you know, I mean, I've always questioned, you know, as we'll get into later, a little bit of 9/11 action. You know, at that point in my life, I was partying hard, but I still knew something was wrong, you know? Like, the narrative did not fit what happened. And so I think I've always kind of questioned. You know, I would say the biggest thing in my life that has really opened my eyes to how much we are lied to was I have children now, and we had to make the decision of whether we're going to vaccinate these children, which is a big decision, you know. I mean, how many times the media told us that vaccines are safe and effective?
The way to save their lives, the way to keep them safe. You're a good parent. That's what you do, for sure.
That's what you do.
Listen to your doctor.
But when you have that child and you have to inject them with 69 doses of chemicals, toxins, you have to make that evaluation. And I'm going to be straight up honest. Like, I was brainwashed.
Yep.
Like, even though I questioned some other things, like, I was brainwashed. I'm like, we just do what the doctors say, man. Like, that's what you do.
Yep, absolutely.
And so, but I had a partner that she just resisted. She knew from the start, like, it didn't feel right.
She
in
could
her,
tell.
you know?
She could feel it was
She
off.
could feel that this was not right, what to do. And so we had to figure out what we were going to do. So we had the book, Dr. Sears' book. I forget what it's called, but anyways, it's the delayed schedule. And I read that book, and I read about all the different illnesses and the vaccines for them. And to be quite honest, I kind of just went along.
Yep.
Like, this schedule looks better than this other schedule.
Absolutely, that's the deal.
So we started doing that schedule, and so both kids had issues, and, you know, I still under those circumstances, I still would not attribute to the things I was seeing to vaccines, because I was so trained to not do that. But, like, my daughter, first of all, she went through many months of where she threw up every single day. There were days when she was sick that she threw up probably 20 times in a day, like, totally unnatural things. Then my son, I mean, to put it out there, like, he started showing these signs that you would call autistic. And man, I know, like, a whole bunch of people just, like, shut their minds off right there. You say autistic, you say vaccines, like, people shut down. I'm here to tell you, like, what you've been told, you've been lied to.
Absolutely.
And when you stop and you do some other things, like, thank God I had a partner that was, like, not gonna have it, you know, because I was the other side of this thing. I fought this thing. I was like, no, it can't be that, you know. Looking back, though, I mean, there was times where my son, like, and after vaccines, where he screamed for hours on end, and he went through these sicknesses, and, you know, for me, it was a little podcast called The Vaccine Conversation. It was probably the best piece for me, and that's kind of why I want to do podcast today, is because I feel like this is the best method for me to take in information.
Yeah.
Is I do best listening to someone explain it to me, you know, and when I started listening to that, it was just they really broke it down, and they started. I remember the second episode was just on all the media sound bites, and how how everything you know about vaccines has been told to you 1,000 fucking times, and you don't even know it.
Right.
You don't even know it. Anyways, we had
to trust the medical community implicitly with what they tell us about our lives, what they're going to put into our bodies, whatever it is that they hand down to us is what we are supposed to absolutely swallow without question because it's them, because they are the authority.
They're the doctors.
Absolutely.
They're the doctors.
Yep.
I mean, how relevant is that discussion right now?
Right.
You know, I mean, it is just. I mean, they haven't even made a vaccine, and they're like, you have to take it.
Absolutely.
We're going to make this shit mandatory because you are not helping the community around you.
Right.
If you don't take this vaccine that for 17 years we haven't been able to make yet at this point, and like, what do they call it? The accelerated. Sorry, I'm blanking, but the vaccine that they have tested on all these animals, when they actually get the virus, they get worse symptoms than just getting the virus.
Absolutely,
you know?
right.
So we have all this evidence that even if they do make a vaccine, that it could be disastrous. And there's a lot of doctors speaking out that are saying this is going to be a disaster, you know. And what the other side is, they don't want you to know is how many doctors speak out against these exact things, because there is a whole community that people don't even know. So anyways, for me, that broke the straw that the camel's back, however you say it, you know, that like at that point I knew we were lied to. You know, that everything that is told, like I really dove into vaccines, and I've just seen that everything that they've told you is true is bullshit, essentially. That the studies aren't there, and I mean it really comes back to and one we'll have to do an episode on is the 1986 Childhood Vaccine Injury Act.
Vaccine Damage Court.
Yep.
They basically removed all liability from the vaccine manufacturers and the CDC and the FDA. Like everybody, like no one could be held liable. They set up a special court.
Right.
Now the idea was when they did that they would have this task force that would go around and enforce this thing to make sure that nothing got out of hand. But they got sued because they never did that. So,
right.
So I mean,
because it was never the intent that they would do that.
No,
at the end of the day, that was just the smoke and mirrors part.
Yeah, and granted, there's a whole world that I would love to explore in that area. But the reality is once my mind was open to that, I started to question everything. Yeah, like nothing, like science. Science is a religion at this point, I believe. I believe that science has been so tainted that if you take science for what they tell you,
it's just like politics, man. It's agenda driven. A lot of it's agenda driven, and there's a lot of motives and people that fund these studies are expecting a certain result. It's like it's corrupted.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look at who's funding these studies, and look at who owns the companies that are producing these vaccines. I mean, this goes deep and long for a ways, but absolutely.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like usually the vaccine issue is something that people have to work themselves up to. It's like once you start to start to question 9/11 a little bit, like maybe there's something weird going on with 9/11, or maybe there's like like what's with all these like voting scams, dude, or something. Sure. But usually to jump right into the vaccine debate, and so like it's interesting, so that hopefully the people listening could be like, okay, well, that's a good entry point too. For me, I mean, like, dude, I really hope that people don't hear that and just like immediately tune out, right? Because that's like like. They say that's black belt level stuff. Well, maybe not black belt. That's like orange belt level stuff, right?
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
But there's some deep truths there that are. I feel like it's so crucial for people to really. You can make whatever determination, but have the information, have the desire to understand. And it's really, and I think the thing is that it comes off as really super complicated and hard to find this information, and it truly is not that hard. It's really not that buried,
right there.
and
It's
the
right there.
absolutely, and you can pull up. I mean, yeah, and so don't be discouraged at all by that, and do just keep an open mind and make your own determinations, but understand that if you can be open to the idea that perhaps there is validity to the other side of the coin of everything that we've been taught, everything that's been indoctrinated into us our entire lives, then we have a hope we have a hope. We have a huge hope at rising against, ultimately, I think, a huge machine of oppression.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And so, our hopes with this podcast, right? Like each episode, we're going to focus on a certain topic to kind of just slowly roll out our understanding of what, the truth is. We could be wrong. And I think a lot of the times what we're proposing, what we're bringing up, what we're talking about, it's just going to leave you with more questions than answers. We're not saying that we have answers. We're not going to say that this is 100% the way it is, because a lot of it you just can't, dude. There's just no, the more you unpack it, the more it unravels, the more you see there's just more questions at the end of each turn, the end of each tunnel. There's just more questions.
Right.
But if you just stay stuck where you're at, you're gonna be stuck with this falsehood that is false. But the more you dig in, the more the truth reveals itself more and more, until it's almost intuitive, dude.
Absolutely.
And so anyway, with the hopes of this episode is that we're gonna start off kind of just easy with just an easy one that everybody can get on board with and everybody can understand, and then you can start asking questions. But we'll get there in a minute. So Megan,
Yes,
how did you
hi.
start waking up?
All right. So for me, it was like a really quiet awakening, probably about 20 years ago, and maybe even before. Let me back up and get a tiny bit dark. So in my childhood, I had a really horrible family situation, a really super abusive father. There was sexual abuse that went on, not with the father, but just childhood trauma. And at that time, as a child, I just knew that that was not going to be a life that my kids had to lead. And it was just, some trauma will sometimes do that, where you just know innately, going forward, that becomes a path. So as I got older and got into probably teenage years, I was pretty confident that I wanted to get my law degree. And my goal and hope at the time was that, that's the dream, right? You get your law degree and you get hired on, hopefully at that time, I thought, hopefully with the FBI, right?
Dude, people are going to be saying, oh, she's just a fucking shill, dude. She's a fucking shill. No. I'm just kidding.
She's what?
She's a shill, dude. She's a government shill, dude.
But I just thought that I had such a passion for this exploitation of children, to be able to somehow stem the mighty flow of evil that happens in that realm. And it was really through schooling and kind of case studies and as I was older, just getting into psychology also, that was another huge draw. And kind of getting to understand psychological warfare around the time that I was starting to understand some deeper veins of child trafficking and kind of how that trickles up. And it was in understanding and really coming across more and more of that trickle up that makes you go, well, now that I'm up, let's see where this trickles back down. And as I looked at where these things trickle back down, it really does trickle into all of these social issues that we're having, all the way up, including today, 9/11, so many things. And I say this broadly, and I don't want to scare anyone, because it seems like immediately that it's disconnected, but truly it is not. In terms of when we're talking about the people in position of power, people who really run things and push agendas and have the money to do so. So that's kind of how the doors open for me, kind of slowly and over 20 years, and more so really, I would say, in probably the last 18 months, really got to be more of a fire for me to kind of get to the bottom of a lot of these truths, as we're seeing so much upheaval in the world, and so much, in my opinion, what seems to be a huge a push toward this New World Order agenda.
Sure.
So,
Yep. You know, I mean,
Fascinating.
I think that's kind of why we started this podcast right now. Is I mean, I have to say, like, I don't know how you guys feel when I'm out in the world at my job at a lot of places. I feel so isolated because there's so many people that just buy right into this stuff going on, and they're just walking blindly into it. And as we're walking into a new control grid, really, you know, and it's just, it scares the shit out of me. To be real
absolutely.
honest. And
The apathy of people almost a
Yeah.
little bit, or just their, and sometimes it's hard to face. I feel like it's hard to face the truth because it's really, really hard to let go of a lifetime of understanding. It's really hard to let go of this social conditioning, and this is part of that psychological warfare where we've been indoctrinated, most of us in public school since we were young, and we've had our parents told this was the way to handle things with us, and then therefore this is how we should handle things with our children. But and Scott and I have talked about this, but I think that at the end of the day, truth stands for itself. Truth is a light unto itself, and you can't, even if for a moment you can deny, even if it reverberates a little bit roughly with you, at some point the truth makes itself known, and it can't, even if you can look truth in the face and say, well, I don't understand why you are what you are, but I think that there's something within humanity, within all of us, that has the ability to recognize when that information, when something true is before us, and to hopefully open our minds to the process of where that leads.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so talk about, black belt level stuff too, like that's, again, people tuning in, like is your, my plan though, to disseminate this is to put it out there to people who are probably going to already be on our level, but at the same time, along the way, if it gets shared and it's going to spread, people were going to pick on stuff. So this is your first introduction to this sort of stuff. If this is like, you're hearing about vaccines are bad, you're hearing about child trafficking at the highest levels of power in the world, like, that's some crazy stuff. Like don't sign, don't rule it out quite yet.
Stay with us,
okay? Because we'll get there, man.
Yep.
And just for the record, I'm not suicidal whatsoever. I've never been suicidal in my entire life.
Not suicidal.
I'm
never ever
fully
been
into my
suicidal.
mental health and happiness.
Yes, and so unfortunately, a lot of researchers and people who delve into these topics end up committing suicide, or so they say. So
Suicided.
A lot of suicided
don't-
people full of information.
if anything ever happens, we've already got a dead man switch in place, so just don't even worry about it. So just
Good call.
It's yeah. So we're just we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to be positive.
Absolutely.
And even though we're diving into the darkness, like we're trying to bring out the light. That's the whole thing.
Absolutely.
That's
Yep.
the whole thing.
Perfectly said.
We're not trying to be we're not trying to like bum you out or piss you
Nope.
off, but that's what happens. That's the natural progression of things. Like once you start seeing this stuff, it's gonna piss you off a little bit. And don't be pissed at us though, dude.
No,
Be like
no.
these fucking guys and their fucking vaccines and their no, dude. Just look into it a little bit.
Well,
We're going to help you do that. Stay
We're
with
gonna help
us.
you do that,
We are absolutely here to. We are that, and that is really our whole purpose.
Yeah.
Is just to help and
Yeah.
to, it's so beneficial. I feel like the information that we've come across has been like eye-opening, life-changing, given us a vision of a future that we wouldn't have had with our eyes closed to these things. So it's
Yep.
pretty
And
powerful.
I truly believe the only way we don't enter the new world order as planned is an awakening.
Absolutely.
of the people
That's
around us.
100% you're right.
And I
Yep.
want to share it with my community. I want to help any way I can. This is a way we can do that.
Yep. And again, they're going to be like, oh my God, these motherfucking weirdos and their New World Order talk, right? Okay, well, check it out. Like this is, a great researcher, Charlie Robinson's always talking about, like, this is not our words. This is their words,
Right.
dude.
Yep.
They're like George Bush Sr. used New World Order in his speeches all the time. Freaking, these people like Brzezinski's and the freaking Kissingers, they use these words to define what it is that they're doing.
Yep.
David Rockefeller, in his freaking biography, biography, I can't remember. It says like the New World Order. Yeah, like he's like literally like this is their words, not ours, man. On the dollar bill, it says Nuevo Ordo Seclorum. It says New World Order on the $1 bill underneath the pyramid, dude. Not our words, man. But when you hear New World Order, you're gonna automatically be like, you're conditioned to tune out and just to be like, oh, they're crazy. These are just crazy people talking because they're saying the words New World Order.
Right.
That it's things like that. It's things like that when your brain starts to tell you that, that's an automatic trigger to be like, oh, that's conditioning. Oh, it's touching on that conditioning.
Yeah.
And you can kind of start to see how the way you feel when you hear words like New World Order or anti-vaccination, and how that makes you feel uncomfortable or makes you feel a little disgusted. That's your programming. That's your programming kicking in. Just recognize that.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of scary once you realize how deep the programming goes and how it's been there your whole life, man. It was there my whole life too.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I mean, Megan, did you have anything else you were gonna say on that? On your coming to truth, or
I maybe lost my train of thought on
You're
that
good.
whole matter.
You're good.
The psychological warfare thing, I think
Yeah.
I would probably touch on.
Okay.
Just in, well, I don't know. Maybe we'll just get into it as we go. I guess I
Sure,
would say
sure,
that's
sure.
sort of just kind of tied into everything, but we'll get into it.
I just wanted to
It'll
give you
come
an
up.
opportunity
I
to
appreciate it.
wrap it up because I was gonna tell a little bit about where I'm coming from here.
Yeah,
so, like,
do, please.
So like, so for me, like, dude, it's embarrassing because I was totally there, dude. When I started waking up, I was just like, oh my God. My whole life, like the things that I really stood for, I'm completely wrong.
Right.
Whoa. It was a mind blower, dude. Like I was literally, and I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of people out there, you know, they saw the buildings fall on September 11th, 2001. And, you know, the rally cries from all over the world, you know, all over America, like we have to get revenge, you know, we have to stop these evildoers and these terrorists, right? You know, we have to stop these terrorists that hate our freedom and try to destroy our country. Like, I was like, yeah.
Right.
Fuck those guys.
Yep.
They have to pay.
Yes.
They have to pay.
That was it
You know?
at that time.
Everybody.
Totally.
And I was all about it,
Yep.
dude.
So
I remember
much.
getting into like
We have their
calling.
wallet.
Yeah. I remember calling into like radio talk shows and being like, these fucking, we need to, you know, just like, whoa, dude. And then it's like, and then it started to and really, you know, it was probably like, I don't even know, man, like 2010, 2011, like, you know, I first started to kind of look into it a little bit, and I was like, and again, but I didn't really go too deep. You know, I heard that there was movements that maybe 9/11 wasn't exactly the way it was supposed to be, but I was like, no, that can't be true because like we're at war with these countries, and like, you know, our government, you know, why would they, you know, it just didn't make sense at first, dude. And I was so like pro-government, like yeah, George Bush, yeah, get him, get him, you
so
know,
much.
and just like it's so weird, dude. I would get into fights because my mom and my sister, who I love so much, dude, like they're you know, they're very much progressive people, and I would just like get into like all these arguments with them, just like no, dude, you're wrong. Like we have to go kill all these, you know. Oh my God! And then like the
They
day
really
came,
set us up to hate
Yeah.
one another.
Yeah.
Another instance where they set us up to
Yeah.
hate.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Divided
just so
we
it's like
fall.
it's just so bananas, and then once you start unpacking it, but honestly, dude, I was kind of lost for a while, and I really just kind of, you know, I was out there getting loaded and doing stupid stuff, and I ended up, and part of that, you know, I was using drugs, and I freaking was stealing from stores to support my habit for a while, okay, and I've got multiple years clean now, and so we're good, but at the same time, I ended up getting arrested, and I ended up going to prison, okay, so I was in prison, state prison, and I'm just like looking at this thing, and I'm meeting people who have spent the majority of their lives in prison and seeing their perspective and just looking at prison from the inside, and I just realized, whoa, dude, this is so, like, it's so corrupt. Like, I was at a state prison. I was at Oregon State Penitentiary, and just seeing the amount of drugs that were moving in up and down the tier all day long, it's like the guards are bringing them in. You know, I started reading a couple books while I was in there that was talking about, like, you know, the prison industrial complex and all this stuff, and like for-profit prisons, and then I started just really started talking to people and realizing this is so corrupt. And one of the weird things too that struck me is that you know, so they have this thing where, you know, they don't feed you very well. You know, I mean, they feed you decently. You can get fat in there if you wanted to.
Right.
You know, they give you enough calories per day, but it's like kind of not the best food in the world. But they also have like canteen, they call it, or commissary, where you can have money, whatever money you have on your books that people give you. You can just buy like soups and peanut butter and all this stuff. Like, and so it's kind of a status thing too. And you're in prison and you have like all these, like, if you have nice shoes, you can buy shoes, you can buy a TV, you can buy a guitar, you can buy like burritos and make burritos with your homies and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's a status thing if you have all that stuff, right? And I was just looking at all these people spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars every week on all this like top ramen and shit like that. It's like $2 for a 10-cent pack of hot ramen, you know what I mean? And they're just cashing in, and I'm just like, whoa, dude, this is why we're all in prison, because you guys are spending all this fucking money on this shit. It's like, okay, how about this? How about we, like, nobody buy commissary for a week? Nobody in the whole state federal prison system across the entire country. Nobody buy commissary for like 1 week and have like the gangs do something good and like enforce that, right?
Right.
Nobody spend anything. Like if you buy something off commissary, then you get punked out, dude. That's how it is, right? And I'd be like, dude, the whole system would just collapse in a day, just like that, right? And I'm looking at, and so today when I look at our world and I'm like, that's it right there. That is our solution. So we'll get into more of that later. Like, we need to start participating in this bullshit.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
Like there's
Definitely.
a really good researcher, podcaster, YouTuber. His name's Max Egan, the Crow House. He's got, I've heard, this is the first time I heard him talk about it. It's called Days of Non-Compliance, where you just literally like, and it has to be a slow rollout and to get people on board, but it's just like you don't participate in the system on their terms.
Right.
Sure.
You know, they have this system in place, and we just like, okay, we're not going to participate in this. So no one goes to work, no one does any bank transactions, no gas purchases, no grocery purchases. You don't buy anything, and then just watch them fall to their knees, dude. Just starve them out.
Right.
Sure.
I don't know. Anyway.
We are more powerful than them.
Yeah, but it just,
Absolutely.
you know, so I just saw what the world was like from like on the inside of the prison. I'm like, dude, this is so bananas. And then also like all these people have spent the majority of their lives in prison and they're perfectly comfortable with it. It's designed that way, and it's designed not to rehabilitate you. It's designed to keep you in the system, and it's because they make so much money off of each individual
That's
person
it.
that's in there. And it's taxpayer money. It's just like a freaking hustle, dude. They take taxpayer money and they siphon it through these prison systems into these corporations that make up the prison industrial complex. So your taxpayer money is just going boom, 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 just right up into these corporate like CEOs' pockets, dude. That's just how it is.
Right.
So it's for their benefit to keep us in prison. Then you get into the law, and then, you know, once I started unpacking that, I was like, Jesus, dude, this is crazy. I get out and I start working at a job, and it's at a countertop fabrication shop, and it's really cool. 40 hours a week, they just let you listen to headphones, right? And then I started listening to. I got burned out with music because I was just listening to music, and I'm like, I'm listening to the same songs over and over, and it got kind of annoying, and so I just started listening to podcasts. And I don't know, I didn't really know many podcasts, and so like I started with like, I don't even know, like probably Joe Rogan's podcast, something like that, you know, just something mainstream, and then I started listening to guests and started going down the rabbit hole with that, and eventually I stumbled across, I think it was Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli, dude.
Yes.
Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli, and I was just like, this is funny, this is interesting. And then I remember the very first time I heard them talking about, actually I think it was the Higher Side Chats with Greg Carlwood. It's a different one, which is a really good podcast too, but they were talking, he had a guest on named Fiona Barnett, who was a survivor of satanic ritual abuse, SRA, and I was like, wait a minute, huh? And she was talking about how she, you know, she was involved in like these sex trafficking stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Like that happens? And I had no idea, really. I had no idea. And I just started, and that's where it all, and I'm like, wow, okay, so like the world is run by a bunch of elite people who just like the currency that they run in and the world that they, it like centers around like trafficking and raping children.
Yep.
Like how is that even, that can't be
And
true.
you're dead
How, that can't be
on.
true. That can't be true. And it blew my mind. And so I remember just feeling sickened and disgusted by it. And I was just like, what the fuck, dude? You got to be kidding me. So anyway, you know, and then I the more I got into these shows, you know, I just like started doing my own research and like taking notes and talking to other people and getting involved with like online communities, and just like, whoa, dude, like I really kind of got on fire for it, you know,
Yeah,
like you were saying.
Sure. Yeah.
And you know, I'm representing here today.
Yes.
Lizard people everywhere. I got this is from a show, Sam Tripoli,
Yes.
up in Portland, Oregon, and then Eddie Bravo right here
Yes.
representing,
Bravo.
dude. Lizard people everywhere with my tinfoil hat, baby. So anyway, I had to do it for the pilot episode.
Yes.
Had to do it, dude. But anyway, man, like, so I don't know. And so today it's just like, whoa, dude. Like, really? And so, you know, I don't know. It's kind of just been building up, like this pressure's just been building up. I think in all of us, we've all felt it to the point where we're like, you know what? I don't fucking care anymore, dude. Let's
Can't
just
be
buy some
silent.
equipment. Let's buy some equipment and just start doing this
Yeah.
thing, man. And we're going to try it out. We'll just see what happens, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm really excited. This is freaking awesome.
I am so sick of driving by the parks and not being able to let my children play at
Yeah.
them. It is such
Yeah.
bullshit.
I break those rules at the
Okay,
park.
there you go.
And I would if I didn't have a 3 and 4 year old with me.
Okay,
You know,
fair.
like
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to do.
I
about
got
that,
you.
Yeah.
I got
This is
you.
what I'm going to do about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there you go. So this is like for those of you in the future who are watching this, man, it's June 4th. We're recording this on June 4th, 2020, and we're coming out of 2 months of global worldwide lockdown, complete economic chaos, and there's everyone's like, oh, the economy's more important than people's lives. It's like, no, dude, not for a split second is the economy more important than people's lives. However, you've been completely lied to about this whole coronavirus
totally
thing,
lied
dude.
to.
You've been lied to so hard, dude. And we can get into all that shit, but I'm sure maybe,
You're picking up, you can smell it on the air. You can blood in the water, and you know it.
And one of the great ways you can tell is that today, the coronavirus is all anybody was ever talking about all day, every day, 24/7. People are just so scared, dude. And then all of a sudden, in the last week, it's race. I wouldn't characterize them as race riots, because I don't think it's more like people rioting as just blowing off steam towards what they perceive as the oppression of the police, right? Okay, now that's all well and good, and I'm actually on that. I'm totally on that level, and I'm all about that. But here's the point of that is that look at what happened to the coronavirus. It's like it didn't even happen. Like, it literally feels like it didn't even happen, and the people I see out there in the streets are still wearing masks. It's like they're holding on to this dream because they don't want to be like, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong.
Well, then we've also got these governors that were pushing the lockdown the hardest, that are very much advocating for these huge gathering protests, like overnight, like it's just not even an issue at all.
So which is it? And then you're telling me like articles coming out yesterday saying how 19,000 people. They're trying to guilt trip us, saying 19,000 people tested positive for coronavirus as a result of these things. And I may be wrong on the science or whatever.
If you go straight to there's a site you can go to for the numbers of coronavirus, and you can look at the USA.
Yep.
19,000 is not out of the normal daily amount of new cases we're getting.
Sure.
It's right in the range. It's right perfect. That's the thing, is you have to look at these numbers.
Yeah.
You cannot. I mean, when I took statistics class, the first thing they told me day one, statistics are the easiest way to lie.
Absolutely.
So you cannot just take these numbers the media gives you. You must go and look at those numbers. Look at them in context, because if you just hear a statistic and a message, like what I find is it's mostly a lie. Right. You have to go straight, take the data. Yeah. Go straight to the data. And I mean, I honestly, every time I hear a statistic, I go straight and try to put it in context. I look up numbers on the internet and see what that means. And a lot of that's, the vaccine world is just, famous for that, and their lies with that, because it's 1 in a million that's affected by that.
Right.
The
idea that we're just. And I realize that there's several different stories floating around. Surprise, surprise with the media. But, the idea that, and you're probably about to expound on this, Scott, but the idea that from when the rioting or when these protests began, that the incubation period possibly could have allowed for that many cases. And that's what they were saying, was that it was from these protests beginning to when they were reporting that there were all of these new cases. In order to have even come up with that many positive tests, they would have to have done, how many did you say, Scott?
Well, so, that was the thing. Is I was basing that on so it has a 3% kill rate. 0.26. So I was 0.26. Okay, so I was looking at more so I was trying to look up the total amount of tests versus the total amount of confirmed cases, right? So even if they do have, my phone's doing. But anyway, basically it's okay. So if you just got 19,000 tests out of the result of these in the last 24 days, even if it's 10% of people test positive, I want to know what that number is. That's what I'm trying to figure out. How many people who get tested end up testing positive, right?
There's myriads of issues with the testing anyways, and what are they testing?
But that would mean you're doing how many thousands of tests just in the last 24 hours to get that number? I don't believe it, dude.
Which, let's just talk about in our community alone, how many friends of friends have we, any of us over the last couple months talked to that were, especially at the beginning stages of this ridiculous pandemic propaganda stunt that they've pulled. How many?
20,000, right in the average.
Okay, so 20,000. So yeah, you're right, dude. Maybe I'm tripping, but
this is the average number of new cases every day.
Yeah, so between 20 and 30.
But they're attributing it, and that's the thing, is that, and so even by their own, that's the point. I think is that important to find their little inconsistencies goes to prove the broader point that it's absolute bullshit. Absolutely. And I don't mean that the virus doesn't exist,
Yeah.
that it doesn't infect the point, how, I mean,
Yeah.
but what are we talking about here? How many viruses are there? How many diseases? And what are we talking about too? Like, what's the nature of a virus? We're talking about getting a vaccine for, I know, and you and I think we could all go, right, exactly,
It doesn't exist,
exactly.
but we're basing our whole plan on something that doesn't exist.
Correct.
Which is inconceivable to me.
Yeah.
Inconceivable,
dude.
Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy, dude. So,
or it does exist and they're not telling us, and they're just waiting long enough to give it to us. There's the whole theory to be made of that.
Yeah.
Could be.
And
dude, it's crazy. And then and then all of a sudden it's just gone. And just coronavirus is just gone, dude. Like, where did it go? Did it even happen?
well, but I mean, and there's a lot of, I mean, we obviously all listen to a lot of this stuff, but I mean, there's a real case to be made that this race thing going on right now is going to usher in the next phase, which they've already
Absolutely.
talked about so much.
Yep.
They've already been like, oh, the next phase is going to be so bad. There's going to be many more people are going to die from this next phase. This thing we're in is not meant to end.
Correct. It's not meant to end. It's meant to keep driving us further and further and further down and keep us down. And they're going to use all of these other extenuating circumstances, which I do not believe for 2 seconds are accidental in any way, and not. I mean,
or unrelated.
Are unrelated, absolutely. And so that's definitely a deep agenda. And if this little fire drill doesn't work, well, what's going to happen if we push them in this way? And then they're going to let.
Yep.
These
and
dominoes
fall. And I think everyone agrees that, like, killing an unarmed black man in the street is horrible, and it's not. But you have to look at the context of what's going on. Look at what the media reported for the 4 days before that. Look at these this father son that's killing the guy, the woman in the park, the Karen.
Yes.
There's all these things that the media is beefing this shit up.
Right.
They're setting this up, so we have this is planned.
Absolutely planned, and I feel like that, and I feel like too that it's becoming that little bit of. I think it's becoming obvious. I mean, even no matter what you believe, again, this is that situation where when you take everything in context, when you take it under this, especially if you just want to look at it just in terms of just this pandemic propaganda that's gone on and what's happened underneath that blanket, and to not be able to see in some way that this is contrived and absolutely on purpose and connected, related, and part of the agenda to push. And what is it driving us toward? Let's talk about what is it driving us toward, which is. Okay, we're going to say New World Order again, but we're talking about, and then just today I was reading about.
Yes, you hit on something brilliant.
Was that which government? Now I'm forgetting.
So no, you were saying how all this anti-police stuff, right? Now it's going to be abolished. There's an abolish the police force unit.
Well, they want to see. That's the thing is they want to abolish local police. They want to abolish local government, and this is super, super important when we're talking about New World Order, because that is the agenda: is to have a global policing. And so the idea behind what we're going to do is we're going to push for social reform, and it's a wonderful blanket statement. It's a wonderful ideal, and we all love that ideal. However, if we're looking at facts and we're looking at the way that things run and we're looking at history and we're looking at the events as they unfold, anyways,
that's great.
But essentially what we're seeing is that the push and really to use the people against each other, the push against the idea of local government, the idea of local policing for our communities, under the guise that it's going to be better for us, is absolute fallacy. Absolute fallacy, and it is it's going to be a removal of our rights. Absolutely, we're talking about essentially what they're going to usher in is an ability to suspend the Constitution of the United States if this goes on. And once that happens, we're
game over.
Fucked.
Game over, dude.
So we're talking about, the proposed Constitution of the new states of America, which I don't know, and I know that, but there is no Bill of Rights in that, guys. And I was saying this the other day too. National emergency within that document is used that phrase is used 134 times. And the idea of personal sovereignty and freedom is completely eradicated from that whole document, really. But these are all little seeds. They said they're these huge blow-ups around us, but really these are, if you're looking at this trickle down, these are little seeds that are going to allow for this rollout, which has been planned I mean, we're decades
Yep.
and decades and decades
Yep.
deep into this.
Yep.
And
Sure.
many of us are just waking up, but really we need to wake up, but quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
But quick.
But quick.
Dude. That was awesome. Yeah, no, totally. So here we are. We're trying to wake everybody up. You know, we could go on and on about all this stuff, you know, and I think that there are so many other good sources out there. You know, some of the ones that I've been really plugged into to keep me. And that's the other thing too about podcasts that I love is that, okay, so what it is like, you know, versus like the mainstream media, you know, that they've proven themselves to be not reliable at all.
Sure.
The great thing about getting information from podcasts is that you kind of learn to curate the material and see who's trustworthy, who isn't over time. They generally have a tendency to prove how honest they are, how what their intentions are. And so I've gotten to the point where I trust a lot of these people. You know, like one of the ones is like James Corbett, dude. How could you just like, he's just like, everything is on point 100% for the last 12 years, documented, sourced, like what more could you ask for?
Right.
And it's like, okay, he just did a great expose on the whole Bill Gates thing,
Yeah,
dude, man.
amazing,
Like, and you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, so people like that, man. And as wacky as fucking Sam Tripoli is, dude, like, you know, he has on great guests and they're on the right path, dude. I love it, dude.
Sure.
And so like these people, like, you know, and Charlie, dude, man, like these guys, they put their money where their mouth is all the fucking time, dude. And you know, if we can, like, we're just like little nodes in this thing, man. Like, we're just gonna take what they got and we're gonna just keep spread it this way. You know, we can't all shine the light in all the same directions, right? And so, here's what our idea is: just to kind of each individual, you know, each episode, we're just gonna kind of break in something that we consider to be factual, truthful, and something you probably haven't even heard of before. And I think today, we're going to get into it, right?
Yeah.
Let's get into
Okay,
it.
we're going to talk about, I'm going to start it off with just a simple question for you. So, did you know that 3 towers fell on September 11th, 2001 in New York City? There were a few others that were damaged, and there was like more like, you know, that collapsed too, that weren't as big of buildings. But that's the big question that, you know, our friends at the Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth posed to the world. They came out with this big marketing campaign asking the world. They had billboards all over, like up in Canada even, saying like, did you know a 3rd tower fell on 9/11? Question mark. Simple answer, you know, it's a very innocuous question. It's a very, you know, it's not going to turn people, like, it's like, no, I bet you, okay, you know, people I talk to all the time, I ask them that question, and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like,
I didn't know 18 months ago.
Yeah.
That's straight up.
Yeah. And
No
people are
fucking
like, no way, that can't possibly be true, because I would have heard about that by now, like, right? You know, that's the big one. That's the big one. And I know that a lot of people that have kind of gotten into the whole questioning the official narrative of 9/11 right here, you know, the 9/11 Commission report, right? It's actually a really good, valuable thing to read, and it's available for free on audiobook on Castbox, I know. It's a real good thing to get familiar with, because you see what they left out, dude. And so the 3rd tower that fell, it wasn't even
10,000
in.
pages, and they forgot about
Yeah,
that one small.
Yeah, they didn't mention a
issue.
single word about the 47-story Solomon Brothers building that was located across the street from Towers 1 and 2. Everyone saw Towers 1 and 2 fall that day, right? That's the iconic images. We've all seen it a million times. Intentionally, millions of times, just to re-traumatize us every time
Over and over.
for just like, you know, their ritual means. But we can get into that later.
Drive it down, drive it into
Yeah.
our psyche,
Trauma.
so we can, and bring that hate up.
Just
bring up
trauma-based-
that.
Trauma-based
Absolutely.
mind control.
Still
But
Get us to rise up against.
But yeah, dude, and there's so many fishy things about it, and we can get into all that stuff, and we probably will, hopefully, God willing, the longer we are able to keep this podcast running. But we're going to keep it succinct, keep it tight here. We're going to just talk about Tower 7, right? So when you guys hear about Tower 7?
Tower
Remember?
7,
Yeah.
it fell at 5:20 in the
Yeah.
afternoon.
About 7
it
hours
was-
after.
Yeah, 7 hours after.
7-8 hours,
It's
yep.
attributed to a fire on the 13th floor that
Yep.
broke apparently one column that triggered all the rest of
Yes.
them, is the idea, what their narrative is from the
NIST report,
NIST
yep.
report.
Yep.
So essentially, though, what happened, and the big question is it was an accelerated free fall. It looked like a
Right,
controlled
let's talk about-
demolition.
exactly.
What is-
how
what is
it fell.
What does accelerated free fall mean?
That means that basically it fell without any resistance. Each floor just fell through itself all the way to the ground, right in its own footprint.
Just
Right.
like that. And you know, you can find it's kind of hard to find footage right now. Like if you go to YouTube and type in World Trade Center Tower 7 or Tower 7, you're gonna have to scroll and maybe find a crappy video somewhere But it's really hard to find. I would suggest going directly to
There are a lot of videos.
AE 911. What's that?
There are a lot of videos.
There are a lot of videos, but it's hard to find, dude, on YouTube. I would suggest
A lot of censorship.
Yeah. We gotta move away from YouTube, but that's a whole nother issue too. Yep. But dude. So anyway, and thank you YouTube for hosting our content. By the way,
we
really appreciate it.
YouTube.
Yeah, thank you YouTube. But also, the NIST report right here. This is a summary of basically what they said is that it started off with falling debris from World Trade Center Tower 1, which collapsed at 10:28, ignited fires on 10 different floors between floors 7 and 30. Water was not available on World Trade Center Tower 7 as a result. Fire spread. Thermal expansion of beams. So the heat from the office fires, caused thermal expansion of the beams. Girder walk-off. On the north side corner of the building on the 13th floor, thermally expanding beams pushed a girder off its seat at the core, whatever the hell that means, and a cascade of floor failures. Unsupported girder, along with other local fires, induced damage, caused the 13th floor to collapse. This caused a cascade of failures down to floor 5. Due to the cascade of floors, column 79 was laterally unsupported over 9 floors, causing the column to buckle eastward. So you're saying one column failed, and then... So if you imagine that in your head, maybe if you're just listening, on your favorite podcast player, dude, or ma'am, I'm sorry, I just say dude,
that's okay.
Everyone's a dude.
That's everyone is. You're good.
Okay, right. So one beam fails, it's gonna fall in on that beam, right?
Right.
The whole thing is just gonna go like a pancake, just flat down, dude. So it's crazy. So the NIST report doesn't answer any questions, and so like I was saying a minute ago, I really want to encourage you to go to ae911truth.org. That's the Architects and Engineers for 9/11truth.org. It's a movement led by Richard Gage. We're gonna get you on here one of these days, man. I swear. But he I think his story is very similar to mine in that he heard. He was very gung-ho about the war on terror, right? And then then someone explained to him, wait a minute, did you know that? And then he saw the video, he was like, wait a minute, I don't want to speak for him. I can't say all that. But, I've heard multiple interviews with him, you know what I mean? And it's just sure. And anybody that watches the footage, it's just that was a controlled demolition. The thing just comes straight down. And so, anyway. Yeah.
And what was in that building?
Oh,
Scott?
man, what was in that building? You're going to have to pull that up, dude. Pull it up.
Well, I feel like I just want to add this little tiny piece in there, which is that. So I'm going to say it because I'm very much. We're going to get into FEMA. We will get more and more into FEMA, but let's just remember that it was FEMA that deemed that that Building 7 was internal fire suppression system which lacked water pressure to fight the fires that supposedly brought this building down. And what did I read? 80. It would need 80 columns from all 8 floors to simultaneously fail all at once to be able to even have. Yeah, that's really the only way.
True.
That is the only way that building could have come down in the way that it came down, and it certainly wasn't fire.
No.
I mean, and so the fact that FEMA signed off on it under that, and what we know of FEMA, it's not a good agenda, not a good agency, not backed or started by good people, and I think these are seeds to keep in the back of your mind. Totally,
yeah. We'll definitely get to FEMA. I know Mr. Bill Cooper here. He had some things to say about FEMA for sure.
He does.
But so the original 9/11 Commission report, which they begrudgingly did, they at first they were like, no, we don't need to look into it. We know what happened, right? And so that's a whole can of worms right there. And I think initially they hired Henry Kissinger to be the leader of the 9/11 Commission,
which
and
is
people
interesting.
Freaked out, and they were like, "No, dude."
Well, let's think about why. Why do we not care for him too much?
Yeah, exactly. We'll get into all that, but then they're just like, "Whoa, dude, you can't have him running the show."
Right.
So anyway, so this comes out, the 9/11 Commission report, and there's no mention of Tower 7. AE 9/11 Truth, Architects and Engineers from 9/11 Truth came forward, and they circled this petition around the country. And I think as of right now, it's 3,301 architects and engineers and 27,000 members of the public have signed the petition saying, all right, this NIST report is bullshit, which was, I think the NIST report came out 2008, something like that, 7 years after the original incident. And it was a kind of oh, by the way sort of thing. And, you can tell they really put a lot of effort sitting around trying to come up with a plausible story. Right. The thing that I heard is that there's only 3 buildings in the history of the world that have fallen steel high rises that have
Yep.
fallen
Sure.
due to office fires. And those
Yep.
3 buildings were Tower 1 of the World Trade Center, Tower 2 of the World Trade Center, and Tower 7.
Sure.
It just doesn't happen.
Third
it
worst
can't be
structural
replicated.
failure
Yeah.
in modern history.
After Towers 1 and 2.
Correct.
Yeah. That's it. So it's like, dude, okay, wait a minute. Well, something's fishy. And, you know, there's footage, you know, at ae911truth.org. They've got just a whole suppository of just, like, awesome information, videos, stories, research. And really what it is, like, this is the focus of the 9/11 Truth movement, man, which is great. Because we can get into all the crazy, stupid stuff, like why is there no footage from the Pentagon? You know, why a plane hit the building and burned everything to a crisp, and all these people died, and there was jet fuel everywhere, but somehow one of the hijackers' passports landed on the ground, like right next to, you know, and like that wound up in the FBI's hand. How convenient is that? Like, what is it? How preposterous is that?
Plus, jet
Yeah.
fuel doesn't burn
Jet
hot
fuel.
enough
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
have done, and
Yeah.
this is the key, it
Yeah.
doesn't burn hot enough to have
Yeah.
done the damage to those
Yeah.
buildings that was
Sure.
done. And,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
the leftover residues and the way that things,
Yeah.
what are we talking about? Like molten steel,
Yeah.
essentially. That doesn't happen.
You know,
with,
there's
And
so
they-
many quirky. Go ahead, dude.
They found the nanothermite particles
Yep.
Yep.
in the rubble.
Yep.
And I mean, how did
So what's
that get there?
nanothermite? I mean, just basic.
Well,
basic.
thermite's an explosive, and
Yeah.
nanothermite's like a basically micro version of it. That someone else maybe expand. My understanding is it was kind of a new when they found it. They knew thermite, but nanothermite was kind of something new discovery to them.
Totally. I mean, so there's so many quirky things, and we can get into all this like later, dude. You know, even like, okay, here's another one. This is verifiable, dude. You can look this up, like Washington Post. George Bush Sr. was meeting with members of the Bin Laden family on the day before 9/11 on behalf of the Carlyle Group, which is a military industrial contractor. They had photos of Bush sitting with, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, I was trying to look it up, but a member of the Bin Laden family. And then after 9/11 happened, after all air travel was shut down, they they let one airplane fly out, and those were the members of the Bin Laden family that they flew out to keep them safe.
Sure.
Dude, this guy right here predicted 9/11 on June 28th, 2001, 3 months before it happened. Bill
Yep.
Cooper
Yep.
on his radio broadcast, Hour of the Time, said, you know, whatever is going to happen in the near future that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you believe it for a second.
Yep, he did.
Called it, dude. And then within 6 months, he was dead.
Well, go figure.
Right.
Tax evasion.
Dude.
That was a
Yeah.
big thing. His tax evasion, and then the United States Marshals looking for him and shooting him to death
Yeah.
at his residence.
Yes.
But I'm sure that was over
Yeah.
tax evasion. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with anything that he ever said
Yeah.
or put out there.
Yeah,
of course.
so look into this stuff, guys. But what I'm saying is like, okay, yes, there's a lot of crazy shit that is just not believable about the whole 9/11 story. But the focus of the movement, as it probably should be right now, is this whole Building 7, right?
Yeah.
So not the architects and engineers, dude. They put together, you know, they've been raising money. I really encourage everybody to go to their website. You know, sign the petition at least.
Yeah.
You know, contribute money if you can. Listen to some of their interviews, and also there's a lot of people out there saying that like, this is the controlled opposition. Like this is all the bullshit, funny stuff to keep us focused away from the truth. But I'm not buying it, dude. I'm not buying it. You know, that's this whole conspiracy thing. You got one people saying, you know, the most credible people, oh, they're actually controlled opposition by, you know, the deep state. You know, it's just, it gets like so back and forth. Like
Yep.
it's just, there's no end to that. But I don't believe that for a second here. Do you got something?
Yeah. I was looking this up. I knew that Building 7 held some pretty important
Yes.
things in it.
Get it.
This is right off of Wikipedia here. It had the Department of Defense Central Intelligence Agency.
So
It
these
was
are
located
offices- these
on
are offices?
the
Okay.
25th floor.
Okay.
Let's see here. We also had a couple other, the Securities and Exchange Commission
Yes.
on
Okay.
the 11th and 12th floors.
Mm-hmm.
On the 10th floor, there was the U.S. Secret Service Standard Chartered Bank, and the 9th floor had the U.S. Secret Service. So those are just interesting things to know that were in this building that went down. That looks like it was controlled demolition.
Yeah.
You know,
It
and
was taken
did you
down
guys
intentionally.
touch on the BBC?
No, we haven't
reporting?
gotten to the BBC yet. Yeah.
So
why
the
don't you tell 'em
BBC
about
did
that?
report on the demolition of the building 20 minutes before it happened. So they're saying the building was down.
Now I did see that footage actually.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can go straight to YouTube and watch them reporting on it.
Yep.
And I mean, that's pretty widely known. It was 20 minutes before the tower went down that they reported on the tower being down. So,
Yep. So somebody jumped.
Somebody
the script.
jumped the gun
Yep,
a little
yep,
bit
yep.
with the script. Yep.
Absolutely, yeah. It was gotta have it somewhere here in my notes. It was like a BBC World News live report with Jane Stanley was the reporter. Jane Stanley, and yeah, she's talking for 20 minutes, like, oh, it's such a tragedy. You know, actually, I have the transcript right here. You know, it says blah 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 blah. Yeah, blah blah blah. 1,500 people are being treated. We have heard that the Statue of Liberty. There's a field hospital. We've heard that it's unconfirmed yet that 100. Okay, blah blah blah, whatever. Then this is pretty interesting right here. And so it says, and so the reporter, it cuts back to the main reporter guy, and he says to her, he's like, I was wondering what it's like for you being in Manhattan. Well, unfortunately, I think we've lost the line with Jane Stanley in Manhattan. Perhaps we can rejoin her and follow up that later. So basically what happens is, like, Jane Stanley's standing there reporting on how Tower 7 had fallen when it's actually
Was
behind
standing
her.
right behind her.
Still behind her.
In frame.
Yeah. And then once they realize that she jumped the script, and they cut the live feed, and he's like, oh, it looks like we lost the connection. You know, it's kind of a trip. Go back and watch it.
And then,
Yep.
20 minutes later, then there it goes. Just.
Yep. So architects and engineers from 9/11 Truth, they commissioned a study through the University of Alaska Fairbanks, okay? And you try to recreate, so basically their determination, I'll skip all the stuff because you can get it all right on their website, architects and engineers, ae911truth.org.
videos for everything.
Yeah, dude, videos and breaking it down. And in fact, this is all new stuff, man. Like this study actually concluded like September, November, somewhere around there, 2019.
Last year.
They just released their their preliminary final report in March, I think, and I think they're still right now in the process of, going through the peer review process or like getting it finalized, and they're going on like a citywide, city to city tour to kind of present this information, or at least they were before all the shutdown.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so this is all like happening in real time, this is really happening in real time kind of stuff. And but anyway, the bottom line is that the University of Alaska Fairbanks, they in the conclusion of their study, they said that it did not happen the way that NIST reported it, and that the only way that building could have fallen the way it did, Megan kind of said it a minute ago, the only way it could have fallen the way it did was the simultaneous failure of every single vertical column in the entire building, which can really...
80 times 8 floors.
Yeah, which can only be attributed to a controlled demolition.
Because let's see, Gage, and I quote, Richard Gage says that it fell uniformly, symmetrically, straight down to its own footprint in under 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Only be achieved by a controlled demolition. So what is a controlled demolition, right? So that requires you to go in with cutter charges on each one of the vertical columns, right? And then they all have to be timed, connected to a computer or some sort of trigger mechanism. And it's just like, boom, push a button, they all go off at the same time. Or if they're trying to have it fall a certain way, they trigger those explosions first, and then it works so it can fall. They can manage the way it falls, but to simultaneously fall like that, you have to, it's a very coordinated thing. Now,
right.
these things, you can't just I know in your head you might be like, okay, well, let's say the tower got hit and it's on fire. Well, they just sent in a crew and they planted explosives, and then they just brought it down. It doesn't work that way, dude.
But to put that many explosives that it would take, it would be months.
It takes
It would
months.
take months.
Yeah.
This is not something they could have accomplished that day, that week,
No.
or even just that month. This was way along in the planning.
Months or years.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about it, and that's where the whole 9/11 truth, that's the focus, man, I think really needs to be. We don't need to find out how involved Dick Cheney is at this point. We don't need to find out Donald Rumsfeld's role in it. We don't need to know what the Bush family's role in it, or we don't need to know that Osama bin Laden was actually a CIA asset named Tim Osman. We don't need to know these things right now. We can uncover that later, but let's focus on the fact that if you spent months and months and months planning demolition charges in World Trade Center Tower 7, that means you knew something big was happening.
Yep.
So the foreknowledge is what the whole point of the thing is. It's like, okay, so, folks, we're leaving you not with the answer, but we're going to give you a lot of questions to go out there and ask, and there's a lot of good resources to go check out. We'll probably put a bunch of links in the notes of this show here that you can go check out, but man, I'm telling you, it's crazy.
Once you know you've been lied to,
Yeah.
it changes your outlook on
Yeah.
everything.
And it will change
Yeah.
that, and you have it right there to change your outlook on absolutely everything. And it will, and it is, ignorance might be bliss, but knowledge is very much power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. And we can get into all like the technical details of it, which is interesting stuff, but like really just a broad brush overview, folks. Like look into Tower 7, man. Go support these folks, architects and engineers and 9/11 Truth.
Yeah.
You know, it's a trip, man. And so I felt pretty strongly that this needed to be the pilot episode because it's just such an incredibly like it's gonna just flip, like people that have never heard this before, it's gonna flip everything. Be like, whoa, dude, wait a minute, really? And then when you start looking into it, you know, it's gonna start unraveling from there. So just
We got to find that BBC footage somehow and get that linked.
yeah, totally. And just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Yes, you've been lied to, and yes, the people that you thought were the good guys are the bad guys. And believe it or not, it's going to surprise you when you find out that all the people you think are the bad guys are the good guys,
Yeah.
but they don't want to.
But stay with us anyway.
See, remember, like we were saying earlier, that's your conditioning talking. That's
Yep.
the programming. That is the programming talking.
We are here to help.
Yeah, and probably all the people at the top. That wasn't like a backsided Trump plug. Like they're probably all bad guys, Trump included, all of them, dude. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is like, dude, just keep an open mind, dude, because
Critical
it's-
think.
Yeah.
That's
we
it.
want-
no more cognitive dissonance here.
Yeah,
That's what we're trying to
exactly.
get
The
away
last,
from.
Exactly.
the last thing they want is for us to be thinking for ourselves.
Right.
You know, they want you to be angry about what they want you to be angry about.
Yes.
That's this whole thing we've been seeing for the last 3 months. It's like, you know, it's like
Look how divided we are.
Yeah, you take on whatever agenda we tell you to take on. Why don't you go out there and get passionate about an agenda that rings true to you? For me right now, one of the things that really that is kind of like my decider, kind of one way or the other, has been like the big tech censorship thing. For me,
Yeah.
Certainly.
that's it.
Yeah.
Because once our ability to express ourselves goes away or only becomes one-sided, that's when it all ends. You know, it's just a digital book burning going on, and this
Absolutely.
this is going to get suppressed because we're talking about this exact type of stuff that's going to get suppressed. So we're going to have to find alternative ways to get this stuff out. You know, and I feel like I only have access to a certain amount of information, and it's or. You know, in some of my research recently, I had to go deep to find something that I was looking for.
Rapidly
That's just
disappearing
like, God, what
information.
the hell? And stuff I knew that
It's
used to be there is no longer there.
Yep.
One of my
all the
favorite,
time.
one of the best documentaries ever is one called Imperium. It's a 2-part, 5-hour documentary
Watch this
on
one.
YouTube. I'll track it down. They took the first part off of YouTube. It's insane. You know, it's just like it's all going away slowly. And so for me, that's where I kind of plant my flag is like, okay, big tech censorship. I don't, you know, that's something that I can. So when I see certain things happening, like recently, you know, Trump was saying how he is instituting he's going after him, dude. He's like, no, you can't do that anymore. Done. Game over. I'm like, okay, I can support that. You know, I may not, you know, agree with everything, but I can get on board with that, dude. And that's the thing, you know, like, yeah. You know, ask your friends, okay, why do you really hate Trump? Name me 3 things.
Yeah.
Well, he's mean. Okay, that doesn't answer the question.
Right.
And I think, you know,
And I don't
the
even
thing
like
about
Trump either, dude.
is
Fuck.
is like the things that I don't like about Trump
Yeah.
aren't the things that the media tells me not to like
Yeah.
about
Well,
him.
Exactly.
that's it too,
Yeah.
right there.
Yep.
And I think that it's also important to understand that someone who we may not like might also potentially be someone that, whether it's on purpose or inadvertent, is standing in between us and
Yeah.
this utter tyranny.
He's
really.
doing good shit. He's doing good shit.
there's-
They're talking about like he took over the Federal Reserve. Like I haven't heard much about that, but I guarantee like that's going to put you in the line of fire with a lot of powerful people. You know, he's doing some good shit, dude. And so whenever I see like smears against him, I'm like, okay, maybe that's just the programming, dude.
Yeah.
But I'm not. But I am very
I don't
reticent.
think any of us are kissing his
I'm
ass
not.
here, but
I'm not supporting. I just don't want to support any of it, dude. I think the whole thing needs to be brought down, and I think the day of non-compliance stuff is a really good thing that we need
Yeah.
to look into. But the problem with it is it would require very, very vast coordination. Everybody to be on board in agreement. Same thing that's what's wrong with this. The rioting that's going on, dude. You know, it's so easy for them to manipulate it to their advantage and take whatever headline they want out of it
Right.
and spin it to their advantage to push whatever agenda it is they want. So all the people that are out there protesting, dude, you're just being used as pawns, man, in the bigger game. It's just, you know, And I hate to say that too, because like, God damn it, I want to go break some shit and say fuck you government. Like that's what I want to do. But it's just like,
for real, what's being protested is absolutely valid.
Yes,
and
for sure.
and the whole idea and the premise behind what needs to happen and what needs to change and what we all stand. I think it's fair to say what we pretty much all stand for. But that it's being caught up underneath a blanket of the deeper agenda, and I think that's the point that we're missing. Is that that needs to be looked at, but it's definitely not. They're taking our focus from why that's happening.
Yeah,
Sure, definitely.
true that. All right, damn, we're at hour 5. You guys have any final thoughts? What do you think? Fucking good first episode there, dude.
Pretty damn
I'm excited.
good.
Fired
I'm
up.
excited. Definitely,
I just hope that
definitely.
video's still rolling over there. I'm gonna be pissed if it's not.
Oh my gosh,
I'm just kidding. We're gonna have to just go live on YouTube next time, dude. I think we got this.
so good.
Yeah,
So
I'm
fun.
I like
excited.
it. Feels good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing as before we started.
Yeah.
I would like to have a list in front of me that I made before.
Yeah.
Like I
We'll
feel like
prepare
that's
more,
for
dude.
me. I just wanted and I knew to do that, and I just ran out of time. But yeah.
Yeah. All right,
But I do
guys.
think
What's our sign off, Megan?
Oh, I'm gonna have a better signer for next time. So we wish everybody to have a. How do I want to say this? We wish everybody peace. We wish everybody intellectual prosperity, and we wish for you to be well, and that our freedoms will be kept sovereign and safe.
Bam.
true that.
What was that? All right.